There's a moment in every man's life, a quiet, almost imperceptible fracture in the soul, when the illusions begin to crack. The illusions of love, of partnership, of that long-awaited future built with someone who promised to understand you. You sit there, maybe in silence, and realize, what if it was all just a lie? Arthur Schopenhauer didn't just ask that question. He tore it open and stared straight into its ugly core. While the world sang about love as salvation, Schopenhauer called it what it truly is, a beautifully crafted deception. He saw romance not as some divine union of souls, but as nature's slyest trick, a trap wrapped in poetry. What society calls intimacy, he called instinct. What we call connection, he saw as suffering in disguise. He didn't say this out of hate. He said it out of clarity. He looked into the nature of man and woman, not just biologically, but metaphysically. Men, he said, are dreamers, builders, chasers of meaning and creators of ideals. Women, anchored in the present, survivalists by nature, practical, emotional, and in his words, they remain children their whole lives, reacting to what's closest, what's most immediate, never reaching beyond the now. This wasn't meant to be an insult. To Schopenhauer, it was simply a reflection of the will of nature itself. And if you ask him what beauty is, he wouldn't say it's divine. He'd say it's bait. A biological tool meant to disarm you, distract you, and ultimately enslave you. You see, a woman's beauty isn't a blessing. It's a weapon, subtle, soft, but dangerously effective. History is littered with men who shaped empires, solved riddles of the universe, painted masterpieces, who all fell not to war or hardship, but to the smile of a woman they never fully understood. Why? Because according to Schopenhauer, women do not conquer with force. They conquer with presence, with charm, with need. And men, poor, unaware men, fight with logic in a realm ruled by instinct. They bring philosophy to a game played with emotion. And so, they lose. He saw marriage not as sacred union, but as a final surrender, a legal illusion packaged in tradition. He didn't believe love was some cosmic bond. He believed it was nature's last move to secure reproduction. A man in love is not a man in control. He's a man in service, to biology, to fantasy, to a vision that was never truly his. And when the fantasy dies, what remains? Duty, silence, resentment. The truth is, when a man gives himself away, to comfort, to validation, to romanticized illusions, he forgets who he is. He trades the freedom to think, to create, to roam, for a quiet routine dressed up as maturity. He stops chasing truth and starts chasing approval. And approval is a cage you willingly decorate with love songs and wedding rings. But Schopenhauer didn't write to shame men. He wrote to awaken them, not to hate women, but to understand them. To stop confusing desire for destiny. To stop thinking every soft whisper is a soulmate calling. Because the tragedy isn't that men love, it's that they love blindly. And when the veil lifts, when the truth hits, it's not just the heart that breaks, it's the man. Most men don't fall because they're weak. They fall because they don't see it coming. Because they've been taught that love is noble, that sacrifice is strength, that the mark of a good man is how much he's willing to give. But what if that sacrifice becomes self-erasure? Schopenhauer watched as men handed over their time, their energy, their peace, not because it was asked, but because it was expected. They volunteer it. They kneel slowly, willingly, one piece at a time. First, it's their ambition. Then, their solitude. Then, the fire that once made them feel alive. And the world applauds. They call it maturity. They call it love. But Schopenhauer challenges us. What if it's not growth, but surrender? To him, love wasn't evil. It was a force. Blind, powerful, and uncaring. The will to life, he called it. A survival mechanism hardwired into us, whispering fantasies, spinning illusions. And when it moves through you, it doesn't ask what you want. It doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares that the species continues. And what better way to ensure that than through the soft promise of connection? Through beauty, through romance, through the idea that she's the one, but that's the trick. That's how it gets in. And by the time you realize you've been played, it's too late. You've built a life on a foundation you never inspected. Schopenhauer saw marriage as the final act in this theater of delusion, a binding contract with no exit, where love is no longer a fire, but a routine. A man who once roamed the world in pursuit of truth now lives on autopilot. He wakes, he works, he provides. But the man, the thinker, the seeker, the builder, is long gone. In Schopenhauer's eyes, this wasn't hatred. It was insight. He didn't see women as cruel or calculating. He saw them as instruments of nature's design. Their mission wasn't malicious. It was instinctive. They seek security, survival, and they've mastered the emotional terrain to get it. While men craft philosophies and chase distant ideals, women root themselves in presence. They don't need to argue. They feel. They sense. They persuade without saying a word. And in this realm of the unsaid, they win. Not with weapons, but with need. Not with dominance, but with absence. They don't demand control. Men surrender it. And so begins the erosion. Not in a loud collapse, but in a quiet fading. A man becomes a shell of his former self, not because he lacks strength, but because he forgot to guard his soul. Because somewhere along the way, he confused being needed with being whole. But Schopenhauer wasn't calling men to run away from love. He was asking them to see it clearly, to stop giving their lives away for a smile, for comfort, for a promise wrapped in instinct. Because the cost isn't just emotional, it's existential. It's your identity, your mission, your spark. He knew that the greatest danger to a man is not hardship, it's illusion. The illusion that this slow sacrifice is noble, that this compromise is destiny, that fading into a smaller life is what makes you a good man. And so he called to the few, the men who dared to ask why, the ones who had suffered enough to question the script. He didn't offer them a path of bitterness, but a path of clarity. Not a rejection of connection, but an understanding of it. Because once you see it for what it is, you can choose. You can love without surrendering. You can feel without falling. You can give without disappearing. That's what he wanted. Not isolation, awareness. And with that awareness comes a quiet kind of power. In Schopenhauer's eyes, the highest version of a man isn't the lover, the husband, or even the hero. It's the philosopher, the one who dares to stop, to question, to see the world for what it truly is and walk away from the illusion. He pointed not to kings or conquerors, but to the quiet ones. The Buddha, the Stoics, the saints who chose solitude not because they were unloved, but because they refused to trade their inner peace for fleeting warmth. They walked alone, not in bitterness, but in truth. He believed real strength is not found in domination or desire, but in detachment. Because the man who is ruled by his longing is not free. The man who cannot be alone with his thoughts without aching for more is still a slave, just a comfortable one. And that's what makes this path so hard. Society will tell you it's wrong. They'll say you're cold, closed off, damaged. They'll tell you that the ultimate purpose of life is to love and be loved. But Schopenhauer offers another possibility. What if the purpose is not to be loved, but to be whole? Not everyone will hear this message. Most will reject it. Most will return to the noise, the comfort, the drama, the dream. But a few, maybe you, will feel something shift, like something ancient waking up inside you. Not rage, not fear, just truth. And once that truth speaks, you can't unhear it. This isn't a call to hate women. It's not even a call to avoid them. It's a call to love yourself more than the illusion, to love clarity over fantasy, to protect your soul from being shaped by someone else's expectations. Because the moment you shape your identity around a woman's affection, you give her the blueprint to destroy you. And when that affection fades, and it often does, you don't just lose her, you lose yourself. So ask yourself, who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when there's no hand to hold, no voice telling you you're enough? Can you stand in that silence and still feel whole? If the answer is yes, if you can sit alone and feel no ache, no hunger, no fear, then you are no longer a prisoner. You are free. And a free man, Schopenhauer believed, is the rarest thing on earth, because he cannot be seduced. He cannot be bought. He cannot be broken by softness or flattery or threat. He moves through the world not needing to be chosen, but choosing himself. So if something in this message stung, let it. Sit with it. Let it unravel the illusions you've built your life around. Let it strip you down until all that's left is truth and you. And when that moment comes, don't run from it. Rise. Not to chase her, not to prove something, but to remember the man you were before you forgot. Because you were never meant to live in a cage. You were never meant to trade your fire for comfort. You were meant to see, to awaken, to walk alone if you must, and to live a life not built on longing, but on clarity. This was Schopenhauer's warning, not cruel, not cynical, just honest. A mirror held up to man, not to shame him, but to free him. Now that you've seen it, will you look away? Or will you finally face the truth you've always known?